Let's talk about listening. Um, it is Listening is such a vital and important skill in any relationship, and it is such a problem especially in intimate relationships, because it's the hardest people to be able to hear is those that we love the most. Again, as life is, it's so counterintuitive. I can listen to a stranger. They could pour their hardest, I mean, their deepest secrets and desires and stuff, and I could be, wow, that could be in awe and fascination and just hanging on to every word they say. But when it comes to someone you really love, if they share their deepest desire, what if their deepest desire is to go travel the world for a year? Like, well, what about me? What about the family? Well, like, well, what, are you crazy? You insane? You're losing. Like, it's. But if there was a stranger and it's someone you just met and they say, "I want to go travel the world for you," like, wow, that's so cool. You should go do that. Uh, so that's just being a very black and white example where you could be like, y- if if you're married or you're in a relationship with someone you really love and you want to be with them, right? And if they say, "I want to go travel the world for a year," that's really hard to hear. Like, do you see how that makes sense? Why would it be so hard to hear those that we really love? So if you take that on, then you know that that's happening on a nuanced, subtle level, 24/7 with every communication they have. Like, I mean, I could give you endless examples. Uh, so how do we listen? So what's the gift when you gift someone the gift of listening? And if you have been fortunate enough to receive the gift of listening, more often than not, most people just want to be heard. And when they're heard, they get to actually see themselves. They get to hear themselves, right? So let's keep with this extreme example. So if you sit there and you give this person the gift of hearing them so they can actually hear themselves, and you're like, wow, you want to travel the world, like, wow, that's so, you respond to them the way you respond to the stranger, like, wow, really, tell me about that, tell me more, where do you want to go, which countries you want to go to, but like, where do you, that is so cool. That is like, I'm so impressed by you saying this, like, whatever it is, like, you actually be in their world, their experience, and they start sharing, they get to hear themselves and they get to feel accepted and seen, and like, ooh, uh they get to find out two things. They'll find out one or the other. They'll find out that that's what they really actually want, that that's their deepest desire, deeper than the desire of actually maybe even being with you, which is really hard, right? Like, how the hell do you hear that? Wow, what if they don't want to be with me? But we have a family, but we're together. But you know what happens if you don't allow for this person to have that desire, and if you're suppressing their desire for, they're already suppressing it, right? It's always going to be on the way of your relationship. I know this is hard things to say, but that person will never fully show up. They would, like, it would always be in the background, and they'll eventually do it in one way or another. They'll be not be present with you. They'll be traveling in the world in their head. They won't be there with you. They will not be having, their body might be there, but they will not be present with you, and they will resent you that they cannot go do that which matters to them the most because of you. Do you see that? I know. So how do we listen? How do we truly listen to someone that we love? with in that kind of love and care and attention. On the other coin is once they get to hear themselves and get to be accepted for their desire, they're like, they very often will go in the other direction. They'll just, the fact that you accepted them, they will just release. Uh, I went to an event a week ago and met this couple, friends of mine, that they were like, um, they wanted to, they couldn't decide where to live. So one wanted to to live here, to stay in the city, and the other one wanted to go live in away from the city, right? And they've had tensions with that for years, and they're finally in a place where like, okay, we can do this now. And then the man was like, okay. In this case, he was like, I'll go. I'll let go of my preference, and I'll go with your preference. I hear you. I honor you. I hear and honor your preference. The moment he did that, it all dissipated for her. Like it just all went away. It's like, it's okay. I don't need to move there anymore. I just, it's gone for me now. But just the fact that, it's kind of like the forbidden fruit, like the fact that we can never have it. And the fact that we can never have it, it just messes with our heads. Like, well, what if, and then if you're like, well, then go get it. It's yours. I love you. I love you so much. Your desire, my desire for you to be with me, not gonna stand on the way of me loving you. Does that make sense? A little bit of a mindfuck. So because with this my desire for this person to be with me is actually what often stands on the way of me loving them. Or my desire for something, it could be the best thing in the world. Like I like, dude, this is gonna be so good. Be so good for you. It's so good for us. So good, for the family. But if that's not their truth, and the moment you hear their truth, and both of those extremes, they sound extreme, but they're usually what happens when you hear them. And I find out that not, don't get your hopes up, but I find out that more often than not, when you accept, like when you hear them, fully hear them, and you fully accept, you know, so acceptance, you can say, is like, there's no even need to accept. It's because you heard them, and that's their truth, and it is what it is for them. And the moment you accept it, and you can't do it for as a trick. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go pretend, just so they can let go of it. If you try to do that, the other person would always know. This does not work as a trick. You cannot trick the other person. But if you truly like, okay, I'm gonna, if you want to go travel the world, I want you to be happy. I love you enough. I'm you wanting to travel the world. It's not gonna get in the way of me loving you. So I love you. Go travel the world. And more often than not, people when they like, ooh, I can have it now. I have no more excuses. I cannot blame this person anymore for having it. So am I actually gonna do this, or actually, now that I know that I can have it, you see, it just kind of has a hook. These things in life, they hook us. The more we resist and pull, like we get stuck in the hook. The more it's like, okay, there's no longer a hook. Go. And they're like, oh, well, I don't want to go in. So, and I'm not saying that that's what's gonna happen, but I'm giving you this example. And if they find out that that's their truth, and that's what they've always wanted to, and that to their whole being and their whole, it is, that's their truth, and they cannot just keeps them up at night, they have to follow this through. then the biggest gift you can give them in your relationship in your family is to let them do that. So maybe they go do that for 6 months and come back, and they would love you so much more and be way more present with you and the family. Or that's I don't know. I don't know what future holds or what life plans has for you. But that is why it's so hard to listen to those that we love, because they could say the littlest thing. It could be just their preference for dinner, their preference of how they want to spend the day with you. Let's say uh, I've had this with you guys already heard that I've messed up my marriage by not doing all the things I'm telling you to do. um, Sunday happens, for just to give you a very simple example, and I want to spend Sunday, this in an adventure with my wife. I want to go places. I'm like, let's get up early, and let's pack up the bag, and let's go to the beach or to the mountain, or go for a hike, or go explore, or go away for the weekend, or go skiing, or go like. I want to have that adventure with my wife because I love her and I want to share these ex- beautiful, passionate experience. And she hears that and she gets really hurt because she wanted to spend first half of the day in bed making love and snuggling and connecting and talking. But I wasn't hearing her. I wasn't hearing what she wanted. She wasn't hearing what she wanted. I got her. It's like, oh, it's Sunday, like So just this very little, just one day, one weekend, one Sunday. It's so hard, for me to hear that she wanted this thing, and it was so hard for her to hear what I wanted, and we couldn't, and we get defensive. So you get in this defensive stance of like, uh, and you try to make a case for your point, and the more the other person is not hearing, you try to convince them, and you try to sell them, and you try to tell them how amazing it's going to be, and the more you're selling them, the more they're not hearing you. And the same thing when they're talking to you, the more they're trying to convince you, the more they try to sell you, the more you're not hearing them. But if you could just slow down and you can actually hear the other person and accept their reality as their reality, and oh, you wanted to spend the day, like, okay, well, I hear that, I honor that, I respect that, that's beautiful. But the moment I hear and I let that in, and I hear that, it's coming from a place of love and desire, and I check in with myself and we have a conversation, and I was like, okay, like, I have to do some processing to let go of my preference and my desire, and kind of humble, be present with the other person, be willing to honor where they're at, and then we could have had we could have had both, right? Like, we could have had a beautiful time in the morning, and then we could have gone on a shorter trip somewhere closer by. And guess what happens? Neither one of us gets to have what we want in the end, because we spend the day with holding ourselves back. We're resentful. It took too long to get ready to go anyway. So then the day got ruined, and we're on this adventure. But then the person is resentful or not. Or if I decide to stay in bed, I'm like, I'm kind of not, just feel like I'm giving something and I'm being resentful. And that just accumulates day after day, weekend after weekend, hour after hour, where we don't hear each other. So, are you willing to put yourself aside and just really listen to the other person the way you would listen to a stranger? And everyone is good at listening, no one's bad at listening if you are actually willing to listen. The problem is we don't listen Because what I mean by everyone's good at listening, because again, if you someone that you have zero attachment to, and they tell you about their fascinating things, you can listen to. If you can put yourself aside, and sometimes it could be hard to listen to strangers because our jealousy or judgment, they might tell us stuff that like, oh, this is bad, this is wrong, how dare you, or like this is, so we I'm not saying we could have a hard time also listening to strangers, especially if someone has a different political view than you, or different world view on world events, or different view than you on all kinds of stuff that maybe matter to you, climate change, or uh, any of these subjects where you've hardened yourself to see the world in a certain way, and you think your way is the best way, and you think you know better, and you think your way is the right way. It has to come down to us being in humility and being straight enough with ourselves to admit that we don't know jack shit and we cannot truly know anything about anything. The only thing we can know about is this moment and the easiness of this moment. I am right here, right now, in this time, in this place, sitting in front of this microphone, in front of this computer, making sounds with my mouth. That is reality, truth, right now. When it comes to politics, I don't know what's best. I might think I know what's best. I don't know if the left's right. I don't know if the right's right. When it comes to um, climate change, I, I, I don't know. I can only believe what I read and heard. Some things make sense to me. There's very a lot of opposing views. Which one's true? Can I humble myself enough to be like, I don't actually know, and just be present and listen? Also, one thing we don't know is we don't know what the future holds for us. Sometimes the worst thing that ever happened to you is the best thing that ever happened to you. So the moment where you feel like, oh, this is so bad, and then 6 months later, a year later, 10 years later, it's like, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's what we make out of this life. Anyway, I don't want to go on side trails here. Uh, I would end it here, but give the gift to listening to those you love. It will absolutely transform your relationship. This person would love you and cherish you like nobody else if you give them the gift of listening. And you know what starts to happen? When you start giving the gift of listening to people, they start giving that back to you. Much love to you, and good luck. I know it's a hard one. I struggle with it constantly. And keep remembering. Last piece I'm gonna leave you with. Keep remembering it. It's never about you. If someone wants to travel the world, it's never about you. It has nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do about them loving you or not loving you. It has nothing to do with you. So if you just really take that on that has nothing to do with you, how would you listen? Okay, I'll leave you with that.